Welcome to Clearing the Clutter Inside and Out with Julie Coraccio. Every Tuesday at 1 p.m., Julie interviews experts on all areas of clutter: physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional. A clutter coach and professional organizer, Julie also offers tips to help you get clutter-free for a more joyful and fulfilling life.
And I created this series because I've seen how clutter has stopped people living their lives and not allowed them to share their gifts with the world. If you've got some inner clutter going on, maybe that's afraid of creativity, afraid of success, that's going to be reflected in your outside environment. And at the same time, if your outside environment is full of clutter, perhaps you're not going to have that realization that you'd rather be a sculptor than working in the corporate world. Or if you can't have access to your kitchen, you can't lead a healthy life. So my goal of this series is to introduce you to many subjects of clutter on the inside and outside so that you can move forward in your life, get rid of that clutter and stagnant energy, and share your gifts with the world. Because I all believe we have unique talents, and I want to live in a world filled with joy where everyone is expressing and living their passion. We're going to talk about technology today. And a lot of times people don't think technology can have clutter, but as our expert guest today is going to tell us, it can. So we're going to talk to Emily Parks today. Emily Parks founded Organized for Success, LLC in 2007. She specializes in productivity and technology for small businesses for both PC and Mac. Emily utilizes technology and business organization systems to help clients increase efficiency and output by creating customized plans to incorporate into daily operations. She provides one-on-one team consulting in person or via Skype, customized workshops and trainings, workflow processes, and professional organization of physical workspace statewide in North Carolina. Welcome, Emily.
Hello, Julie. Thank you for having me here.
And I need to add the important stuff. She is a Wake Forest Demon Deacons fan. She loves the San Antonio Spurs, and the woman knows how to talk about cars. I haven't told Emily or my husband this, but I've decided she's going to be my proxy when we need to get a new car this summer, because cars are not my thing. Emily's going to be my vote.
I will fulfill that role for you.
Outstanding. All right, let's get started because we have a lot to talk about today. Where do you see that most people get stuck in clutter with their technology?
Julie, that's a great question, and I see three main areas where people typically have issues with technological clutter. First, it's not uncommon for executives to receive a few hundred emails per day. With that mass amount of communications coming into your email inbox, it's very easy to end up with tens of thousands of unread or unhandled emails that accumulate and build up that clutter regarding email. Second, there are so many free apps out there. It's like that bright, shiny object hanging out there that everybody wants to grab and can very easily download hundreds of different apps onto their smartphone, maybe a tenth of which they'll actually use. So those that have been downloaded that aren't used then become clutter and make it harder to find the apps they really want to use. And finally, there's a growing problem with information overload. It used to be that we worried about piles and piles of paper, which piles and piles of paper were limited by the space that we had in the area we were working with them. Alternatively, with electronic clutter, so articles that we've pulled from websites, recipes we intend to cook, do-it-yourself projects, research we've pulled from the internet, all of that can pile up with limitless space. So we're not confined to the space on our desk or the space in our room. It's not uncommon to have a 64 gigabyte flash drive that you can put plenty of information on, or unlimited space in an online file repository. So then you have all sorts of electronic clutter.
So tell us a little bit about, I love that you bring your joy of cars into your work, and you have something called the pit stop package. And can you explain how that works, because you have a certain technique and what you do that helps you help your clients eliminate technology clutter?
Absolutely. Just like a true race car driver in NASCAR or any of the other circuits needs to take a pit stop when they've got a flat tire, when they're low on fuel, when they're not hitting on all cylinders, maybe they're just not feeling right and things aren't jiving correctly, then they take a pit stop. Same thing for business professionals. With my pit stop package, I'll come in, meet with the individual or the team that is looking for enhanced productivity. We assess where they are right now, get a feel for what their goals are related to productivity, organization, efficiency, and then I take that information back and I put together a very thorough pit stop report. It walks them through not only what the goals were that I heard them say that they wanted to do, but also step by step specifically how to achieve those goals. What I recommend for processes, strategies, resources to be used. Then once the report is prepared, I'll bring that back and present it face to face with the individuals or the team that are looking to enhance their productivity. Sometimes that's all they need. They're just looking for a game plan to get started. Other times, and this is much more common, we do a hybrid approach where they may do some of the steps on their own, but most of it they'll bring me back in for some sort of training, hands-on organizing, or actual consulting with them to actually move through the steps of the pit stop report. There's no commitment to anything further with the pit stop report package, but it's totally customized for that unique individual or that unique team.
Because I think that's really important. You know, we're going to talk to it and get more in depth later on, but I see a lot of people, and maybe you see this in your work too, oh, well, Martha Stewart did it, so of course it'll work for me. And it doesn't take into account maybe you're a visual learner, like I'm a very visual person, or you have certain habits, and that's kind of where your skill set comes in to see where people are more challenged and say, well, this isn't going to work for you, and here's why, but here's something else that we can try that would be better.
Absolutely. No two people are the same, and if you're not using the tools that match your unique personality, your unique skill set, if you're a visual person, if you're an auditory person, if you're more of a hands-on person, there are people that are paper people, there are people that are electronic people. And you have to create a system that works with your needs or it's not going to be able to be maintained. Getting organized is only half the battle. Staying organized is what's most important.
Absolutely, that's a great point. Thanks for bringing that up. Now, what do you say to people like my mother, who perhaps will say nicely is really challenged when it comes to technology, or to people that are afraid of technology? You know, when I was a senior in college, I had my thesis. I won't say the year I graduated from college, but let's just say we had a computer lab that was new and the computers don't look anything like they do today. I lost that, and I was able to recover from some, but I have to tell you, that traumatized me for quite some time.
That is a very common phenomenon, and there are actually two different types of people. So let's break this down and talk about that first group where they're not comfortable with technology. They're not sure what all these buttons mean. They're not sure about how everything works together. Well, for those individuals, I find it's very important to take baby steps. So building that foundation where they're comfortable with the really basic philosophies and the basic processes, because everything in these technological tools builds off of some very basic principles. And so knowing those basic, how to save a document, how to create a new document, how to create an email, once you get those basic tools down, you can build off of those very easily. And then as we build off of that foundation, it's so important that the number one lesson that people come away from working with me having is that there's very little that you can do to really destroy your technology. Dropping it in water is kind of a bad thing. That's not going to work very well. But as far as hitting a button and having it destroy what you've worked on, it's going to usually ask you beforehand, are you sure that's what you want to do? And so when the pop-up comes up, that's the red flag. But I encourage my clients to try things until they get one of those red flags that pops up, because if you don't try it, you'll never learn what it does. And especially this day and age when so many of our machines have gotten away from having the words or the drop-down menus of words, now it's so many pictures. Mm-hmm. So if you don't try what that picture might be, you may never know what that picture stands for. On the flip side, those people that are not, they're more leery about, is my information going to get lost? Is it all going to disappear? Number one, I encourage them to frequently save what they're working on, because if you have a power outage, if you get a virus that does some damage, if you regularly save what you're working on, you're more likely to be able to revert back to the most recently saved version. The second portion of it is to make sure that they have a couple of different backup systems in place. So one that I recommend is having an online file repository. Most people are very familiar with examples of Dropbox, Google Drive, Microsoft SkyDrive, SugarSync, some of these where you're saving documents in the cloud that you can then access them across multiple different devices, as well as share them easily with other people. In this day and age, so many viruses are shared via attachments on emails that people are very leery of receiving emails that have attachments. So the great thing about these online file repositories is that when you share a document through those services, it's usually shared as a link that people can click on to download the file themselves, which is very reassuring for people. But it also gives safekeeping of people's records in the cloud. Another alternative that I have most of my clients doing in addition to the online repository is to have what I call a set it and forget it solution. So what that means is you install the software into your computer anytime your computer is active on the internet. So like you actually have a Wi-Fi connection or you have internet connection in your device, it will send all of your data and documents to its safekeeping servers. And there's usually servers in multiple states. So if there's a catastrophe in one state, you've got a backup in another state. And they're all encrypted so that everything is safe. But the examples are Carbonite, CrashPlan, and Mosey, which are all three that you install. Once you've installed it, you've told it what to back up, it automatically backs up your data, and you don't have to remember to plug in an external hard drive to back it up or to plug in a flash drive to back it up. It's going to do that automatically for you.
Now, I want to ask you, because you brought up a couple interesting points, and I know you teach a class on this, and here Emily and I are both in Raleigh, and what was it, Pack Storm, the 20-year storm came here to Raleigh. Now, my husband's business is, in his department, they have to run 24/7. So the storm hit on Wednesday. They thought it might hit on Tuesday. On Monday, he was told, okay, you go to the backup office if there's snow. There wasn't. They had a backup plan Wednesday. We couldn't get out of our driveway. And so he was able to, he does computer work and was able to call in. But I think people really realized after that snowstorm, you need an emergency plan. So could you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. It's not just fires or computer viruses or terrorist attacks that are emergencies that we have to prepare for. It could be as advance notice as a snowstorm, a hurricane coming, a tornado coming. All of those are things that we need to prepare for. And we are lucky that we live in an age where technology hugely helps us with this preparedness. Because with cloud solutions, with the, as I mentioned, online file repositories, set it and forget it solutions, tools like Evernote or different tools where you can save your information, save notes, checklists, all sorts of preparedness information, you can be prepared beforehand. But the biggest step is to take time to think about what are potential emergencies that could strike you and your business. And with those potential emergencies that can strike you, who is going to need what information at what intervals following that emergency? So do you need to communicate with employees? Do you need to communicate with customers? Do you need to communicate with vendors? And how will those either communications or information that would need to be accessed be available for those groups, whether it's your employees, your vendors, or your customers?
Excellent. Thank you for that. And you touched on Evernote, so let's talk about that. I only think it took you 2 or 3 years to sell me on Evernote to finally get to your Evernote's basic class, and I'm super excited. I'm finally going to take advanced next month in March I won't be on a honeymoon, but we used Evernote for our honeymoon. That was the first major project that I used about that to tell people, because that's probably one of your favorite apps, and it's not only great for businesses, but it's great for your personal life. Why do you like it so much?
Well, I think that Evernote is an absolutely fantastic tool, and I consider it basically my external brain. The slogan for Evernote is "Remember Everything," and their associated logo with that is actually an elephant. But I like to think of it from two strengths that it has. The first of which is its search capabilities. So I use it for checklists, compiling research, making my notes for analysis, all sorts of information that I need to reference later, either for living my own life, helping my clients, running my business. And so with the search capabilities, I can find any bit of information that I've compiled in there just by entering the related term that I'm looking for information about. Second is the ubiquity of it. I'm always on the go. I may be in my office one day, I may be in a client's office one day, I may be at a networking event or a lunch event or out and about somewhere, working from a coffee shop, whatever, but I typically will have something with me that I can access my Evernote notes on. And I know that with it syncing across all my devices, whether I have my laptop, my smartphone, or my tablet, I can still access that same necessary information from wherever that I might be working. And it's been hugely important because of the flexibility of the tool. So not only can I upload typed text, information I've clipped from the internet, web clippings, but I can also do video files, audio files, and I can take photos of my handwritten notes that are later searchable, because Evernote uses optical character recognition. I say that 10 times fast. But with optical character recognition, I can search what was written in a handwritten note, or if I took a photo of a handout, then anything that's in that photo of the handout is then searchable, and I can find whatever I'm looking for very quickly. One other thing I want to bring up about Evernote too is that there's a lot of what people would consider comparable note-taking sources, tools that are out there, but a lot of those require you to fit within a template. So when I talk about the different kinds of information that can be compiled into Evernote, I can utilize many different forms of information within the same note. So I'm not confined to all checklists in one note, or just type text in another, or just a photo in another. I could have one note or one document, is another way to refer to it, that has a photo I've taken, notes that I've typed into that note with it, as well as an audio file I may have added to it. So I like the flexibility of it.
Okay, we have a comment here I'd like to share, and I want to encourage you. I do these shows for you. I want you to clear the clutter out of your life. So if you have a question or comment, please feel free to share it. Emily Lansfield says, I switched to cloud-based just over a year ago. It has removed all the concern for file/data loss so I can focus on the creation. I love that. Do you have any thoughts on that you'd want to share?
I think that's an awesome comment, and congratulations on moving to the cloud. It is a empowering transition there, and I think from an efficiency standpoint it's really helped a lot of people. He hit on one topic I want to reiterate to people, in that by moving from paper to the cloud, you can search for things so much easier, because with paper you have to make sure it's in the right file to find it. In the cloud you can do a search, and it's going to search across all your folders, all your notebooks, whatnot. Even if you're in Evernote, it's actually going to search the words in the document too. So it just saves time looking for what you're looking for.
Okay, we have another question from Geraldine Thomas I'd like to ask you. Geraldine asks, any tips for those of us who have clients preparing for the end of life? Thought she said end of the world. Sorry, I was going to be like, do an REM song. How do tech organizing experts advise proceeding with clients' social media accounts, passwords, online bill paying, etc.? Great question.
That is an excellent question, and I'm actually working with a couple of clients right now where we're kind of working through the thought process of what are their needs and expectations and goals, as well as their loved ones that will be left behind needs and goals with this. So for example, from a personal standpoint, you may have a personal Facebook profile that your friends and family would like kept alive and active after you're gone. So that is something to take into account. But from a bill pay standpoint, from a activating, deactivating online account standpoint, it is important to have that one point person who you trust with anything that is given either, if you have a, usually I recommend you have like a LastPass or Splash ID or RoboForm or some online tool that is a safe keeper for your passwords, that person who is your keeper of the important things is given the login for that, so that when you're gone, someone can get in and activate those passwords, especially for bill pay or deactivating accounts. But it is also important for them to keep in mind that there may be some files that they want to set up for auto-delete, so should something happen to them and they didn't want those files shared with their loved ones. So it's definitely worth planning for and thinking through your goals as well as your loved ones' goals.
I know there was a case where a military man died in Afghanistan and his parents wanted to be able to access his Yahoo account, and Yahoo wouldn't let it. And I don't remember how it settled. I think they might eventually. But, you know, when you're dealing with the loss of someone, this is a stress that you don't want to have. But you mentioned briefly LastPass. Can you explain for people who are watching that might not understand what that means, one password is, and tell them what that is?
So there are numerous different programs or platforms, depending on how you want to refer to them, that are password managers. And you go onto their associated website, create your username and password. This will then become the only password that you have to remember. So on the one hand, you want to make it something you can remember. On the other hand, you really need to make it something that no one else can remember, because if it's easy to hack into it, then they will have access to all of your different passwords. So make it complex enough it can't be hacked, but easy enough that you'll remember. And then once you've logged into the account, you can program into whichever platform you prefer all of the websites and associated logins and passwords for those websites that you use on a regular or sporadic basis. So that way, once it's installed on your laptop or desktop, when you visit those websites, it will automatically know to log you in.
Excellent.
And
thanks. Go ahead.
Most of them also have apps that you can use on your smartphone or tablet. So when you're trying to visit a website from your smartphone or tablet, you actually would then log into your LastPass app or your Splash ID app and go to the website through that password manager tool.
Can you talk a little bit about email? Because I know that's an area where a lot of people get overwhelmed, and I will admit that I use that as an excuse when getting off people's emails lists that I don't, oh, you know, I'm getting 200 email a day, I love you, instead of saying I just really don't want your newsletter. So talk a little bit about that.
Oh, Julie, email is a huge problem for people. Many business professionals are currently getting couple hundred emails a day. And so the current practice that is normal for people is to do what we call check our email. So you log in, you glance at what you've got, you respond to those that you feel are really important at the time, and then you come back to it later. Well, unfortunately, that makes it difficult to know which of those emails in your inbox have been responded to, have been dealt with, are waiting on something else, are in the thought process mode, haven't been read at all, and very quickly you can get to a point where you've got 10,000 emails in your inbox and don't even know where to start. Additionally, this process of checking email becomes an inefficiency because as soon as you've glanced over that email, your brain starts to think about your response to it. So even if you aren't responding at that point in time, you're filling your brain with that clutter, you're thinking of it until you come back to it, and then when you come back to it, you're rereading it and starting that thought process over yet again. So it's just it's a drain from a time standpoint, an energy standpoint, and an efficiency standpoint. So what I highly recommend to clients is that they schedule times throughout every day to process emails out of their inbox. So get rid of this thought process of checking email and adopt the philosophy of processing your email. So that when you have that specific time to go to your email and process it, you are actually reading it, responding to it, or specifically scheduling a time to respond to it. There are 4 different types of emails that we receive. There are those that are requesting us to take an action, or the task-related emails. If you receive a task-related email and the task can be done in 5 minutes or less, it's more efficient to go ahead and do that task the first time you read the email, because if you come back to it, you'll have spent as much time reading it, thinking about it between readings, and reprocessing it as it would have taken to just do it the first time. If it's a task that takes more than 5 minutes, though, I recommend it be added to your running to-do list. And then you can schedule your time accordingly when you have the allocation for that task to be done. The second type of email we receive are appointments or calendar requests. So those are ones you may go back and forth with someone via email, or you may just go ahead and put that on your calendar when you first get the email. My recommendation for a calendar-related email, though, is to try to transition that person over to Doodle. Doodle.com is a website where you fill in on a poll, per se, when you are available, times and dates that they can choose from. Then when you send that back to them, whether you're meeting with 1 person or 20 people, you go with when the majority of people are available rather than the emailing back and forth that fills our inbox. The third type are reference emails. So those are ones that as soon as we've read them, we would want to file them within our personal folders. Personal folders can be a whole amazing puzzle themselves, but it's a balancing act between having enough folders so that every bit of reference material you get that needs to be saved for later has a home, without having so many folders that it could go in more than one folder, or you have to scroll and not really know what all the folders are. I always tell clients, if you're filing an email in one of your personal folders and you can't figure out which folder it goes in when you're filing it, how will you know which folder to look back for it when you're looking for it later? So the fewer personal folders you start out with, the less likely you're going to have to search more than one for the email you're looking for later. And then finally, the fourth type of email we receive is trash. Now, I'm not saying spam. I'm not saying junk. I'm saying trash. That means that you needed to read the information, you needed to receive that email, but you don't need to keep it. It's amazing how empowering the delete key can be. It really can be your friend when used appropriately.
Outstanding. I like that. So that's trash, not junk or spam. I really like that. That's really, you're going to have to do a little blurb about that. Now, you've talked about Evernote, which I know you love, but can you share some of your other favorite apps that you use?
Absolutely. As you know, I love Evernote. But beyond that, I do depend on Dolphin as the web browser that I use on both my smartphone and my tablet. I use Around Me in order to locate gas stations, coffee shops, restaurants, where I'm located as I'm traveling between clients or across the state or wherever I may be at the time. I depend on Square Registry in order to take payments from my clients via credit card. I love Paper Karma in order to prevent unwanted snail mail from coming into my home. I use Music ID in order to identify new songs that I hear on the radio. And I love listening to the local ESPN radio affiliate on WRAL's Sports Fan app.
Outstanding. Well, that's great. When speaking of ESPN, I am the only person in North Carolina that doesn't watch college basketball. However, I am a huge Steelers fan and WVU Mountaineers fan, so I'm a tailgater. I like football. I like college football. I love professional football. And you wrote a really fun blog about using technology when tailgating. So share some tips from that.
I firmly believe that technology should be a tool in our toolbox that helps us. rather than this hindrance or something that makes life more complicated. Well, when you're planning a tailgate, that's when you need tools to help you. So things like ourtailgate.com is a great resource where you can not only input all of the individuals that you want to invite to your tailgate and actually send the invitations through ourtailgate.com, but you can set up a listing so that people can sign up for what they're bringing to the tailgate, which getting everyone that's coming to the tailgate involved in the planning process makes them even more excited about coming too, and it lessens the burden of the person that's coordinating everything. Additionally, I really feel like a tailgate can either be made or broken at the grill. So Grill It app is a great resource for not only finding new and unique things to grill, but also recipes for making your meals better while you're tailgating. Additionally, the environment you've got while you're tailgating is important, so I like Spotify as an app to play music, and the Yahoo Sports app is really helpful for keeping up with scores of other games that are going on while you're at your tailgate.
Outstanding. I'm like ready to tailgate now. We only have, what, 6 more months till football?
It's on its way. I'm ready. I love football.
I am too. Go Steelers. Okay, this is very important because this whole series that I do is about eliminating clutter from our life. So what tips would you have or common mistakes that people make that leads them to clutter their technology?
So when I think about common mistakes that lead to clutter in technology, I go back to the 3 issues that we talked about before: email, apps, and information overload. It is so incredibly easy to accumulate thousands of messages in our inbox, to fill our smartphones with hundreds of unused apps, and to overload ourselves with articles that we've clipped, blog posts we've pulled to save, recipes we're going to do, do-it-yourself ideas, audio clips, video clips. The list goes on and on and on. So it's important for people to be aware of what they're downloading and what they're bringing into their technological environment. Pinterest is a great tool, but it's made it so easy for people to pin different ideas, dreams, thoughts, plans, things to do that we never really refer back to. So it's great to go out and play and pull in different things. It's just also important to be cognizant of what we're bringing into our environment and then regular purging of that. So making sure that if we bring something in, that at some point we analyze whether it's appropriate to keep it or it needs to be purged.
So why don't you, if you can briefly suggest, I know people get hung up on making decisions, because really letting go of clutter and organizing is all about making decisions. And what I say to people, you have a finite amount of time here in life, and it's great that you have all these interests, you can't do anything. So maybe you could share a tip or two about making decisions.
Absolutely. So in order to make a decision, particularly related to technology, it's important to start with what your priorities are. So if you know where your interests lie, then you can focus more on bringing in tools that will match those interests, match those goals, match those values that are important to you. So I think self-assessment is a great starting point from which to enhance one's decision-making abilities, but I also think taking the time to do the necessary research beforehand is also helpful. Most tech tools allow you to try it, test it out, test drive it before you have to commit to it or before you have to move forward with adapting it, moving it into your workflow processes, things like that. And so I highly encourage people to test drive, try things out, go for the free trials. Almost everything has some sort of a free trial.
Now let's talk a little bit about Mac and PC. You're proficient in both, but someone out there might be deciding, well, should I try a Mac or PC? What are your thoughts on that? Now, I live in a household where my husband said, as long as I breathe, there will be no PC. And so we are PC free. I still have the old PC in case of anything. I haven't, because that's for presentations, because not everyone is Mac compatible. So I said we get boxed up, but we have it for emergencies. But what would you like to share about the difference between PC and Mac and your thoughts?
While I believe that there is no such thing as the best platform overall, there can be a best platform for each individual. So it's important to remember that a Mac is a Mac is a Mac, meaning that each MacBook, each iPhone, each iPad is going to have the same basic operating system. They're all made by Apple, so they're all going to be created equally. Alternatively, there are many different manufacturers that produce PCs. So each PC can be a little bit different than the next PC, and it's important to keep that in mind. There's nothing wrong with that if you find that the Lenovo PC or the HP PC or whatever is the right fit for you, but just keep in mind that there are variations across the PC platform. It's not like I just go for a PC and it's going to be the same regardless. I encourage shoppers to ask lots of questions when they're in the store. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, make sure that they test drive the option. They have them all out on the counter so that you can try out the keyboard, try out the screen, try out some of the programs, make sure it's going to work with what you want it to work with. And above all else, make sure that you think about the maintenance situation. For example, if you have a problem with a Mac, you take it into the Apple Store and you let the people that are at the Genius Bar work on it. Most maintenance, most fixing any problem that you have with a Mac is done there by the Genius Bar. It's painless and free. Alternatively, if you have a problem with the PC, there are so many different factors to consider, so many different options, so many different people that work on fixing PCs. On the other hand, if you've been using a PC or a Mac for years, it's important to be aware that changing platforms will require a transition, and there's a learning curve. So if you go from Mac to PC or PC to Mac, you're not going to pick up on the difference between adding the command button or adding the control button versus using the shift on the different platforms overnight. It takes time.
All right, excellent. Can you share a few tips on how using technology can help us eliminate clutter?
Absolutely. So a lot of people claim that 1 is a lonely number. And I would like to argue that there is a power behind the number 1. And I think that's directly linked towards organizing with technology. For example, I strongly believe that having one calendar is important. Having one running list of upcoming tasks is important. Having one data dump for all of your notes and thoughts and checklists. Having one address book is hugely important. There's a couple of reasons behind my philosophy of the power of 1. One is that if you have one of each of these tools, you're less likely to have duplicates, double schedule yourself, or have too many things going on in multiple places. Additionally, you're less likely to have things fall through the cracks. I find that if people have more than one to-do list, they're focused on one, the other one falls through the cracks. If they have 2 calendars, they're more likely to double schedule themselves, and then one of them falls through the crack. So there is a power behind 1, and I think it's important when thinking about tech clutter to think about where can I simplify to 1? One phone, one tablet, one email program, one email housing place where I check my email, wherever you can optimize the power of 1.
I think that's really great advice. I had someone say, hey, I referred you to speak, and I'm like, all right. So I emailed the woman, I said, so-and-so referred me, got back. I mean, I know you can't always judge the feeling behind email, but there was no mistaking this one, and she wrote back and said, well, so-and-so was supposed to speak for me but double booked and had to cancel, so I wasn't going to wait around, and I already scheduled someone else. Well, you know, you're a small business owner like I am, Emily. You could tell that that relationship was strained, to put it mildly. she didn't look good. I mean, and whatever it was that happened, and it might have been that, but that's just an example in real life how someone lost a speaking engagement, strained a relationship with the client, and that, could have further consequences.
Very much so. It's a ripple effect. So if you're duplicating appointments, if you're letting things fall through the crack, it's not only going to impact your productivity, your effectiveness, but it's also going to impact your brand and the way that you're perceived by others.
Now, you've given us a lot of great information today, but I'm all about sometimes it's going with the flow and sometimes it's taking action. I do this series because I want people to change their lives. I don't want them to have clutter. So if they're watching, they're like, oh my gosh, information overload, there's so much. What one step could they take to eliminate clutter from their life using technology?
So we've touched on quite a few things about email, apps, information overload. We've talked about priorities and picking what you download or what direction you go with on your priorities. I think that once an individual can pinpoint where they're feeling overwhelmed, so are they feeling overwhelmed with emails? Are they feeling overwhelmed with all of these apps that are everywhere, or all of these documents on my desktop that I can't find what I'm looking for? Whatever it is that's causing that overwhelm, then I recommend that you determine what is working so you can remove what is not working. What that means is if you're overwhelmed by all of these apps and you can't find that app that you're looking for, determine what are those apps that you do use and you do like so that you can remove the clutter of the other ones. So the action item people should take away with is wherever you're feeling technologically overwhelmed, what is working in that realm so you can get rid of what's not working in that realm.
All right, excellent. We have a question, Emily, from Lance Fields, who says, what are your thoughts, experiences with utilizing tech and organizing day-to-day life for the average Jane or Joe?
What are my thoughts on it, or what are my...
He said, what are your thoughts, experiences with utilizing tech and organizing day-to-day life for the average person? Do you need clarification on that?
No, I find that we are more and more dependent on technology for our day-to-day lives. So it's not just our communication methods, our collaboration methods, it's finding our directions to get from point A to point B. It's pulling our calories from the information on the internet so that we know if we're headed in the right direction for our diet plan. It's pulling our exercises for our morning workout routine. We're all very dependent on it. So knowing that we are dependent on it means that we need to figure out where it's appropriate and where it's not appropriate. There are certain areas of life where people just feel too overwhelmed with technology. So seeing where your comfort zone is helps to be able to determine, am I too dependent on technology here, or do I need it somewhere else, things like that. And I do find a balance is important. It's important to disconnect from time to time. I don't check my email on my smartphone. I check it on my tablet and my laptop because I feel like there needs to be that level of not connectedness, if that's a word, at some point, because when I'm in a meeting, that's the person I'm meeting with. I'm not thinking about the emails, or when I'm on the phone, I'm not worried about the emails popping up. And I think that balance is important. Does that answer your question, Lance?
It does, but I'm wondering if maybe he's in, Lance, please post if I'm wrong, but maybe if you could get examples. So in everyday life, an average person who maybe not from the business is utilizing technology to organize their personal life. Or he said to add, I meant for the less tech-savvy folks.
Oh, so how would I recommend that a less tech-savvy person incorporate technology easily into their day-to-day life?
I believe so, but if not, Lance, please post. We want to make sure. I think I was interpreting it a little bit different, but maybe that's, yeah, I would answer that. We'll go with that.
Okay. So if you're less tech savvy, part of it depends on your family dynamics, if you have a spouse and kids, then you're more likely to need some sort of communication platform that y'all can all communicate together, whether it be an electronic calendar or shared text messaging account or whatever. But if you're a single person, you can get by with maybe having a paper calendar without being dependent on that technological calendar. But I do find from a living day-to-day lifestyle, the more people that need to share that information, the more we need to incorporate technology in that. But there are some basic tools that make that easier. Google is a great platform for using Google Calendar, which is great for families to share from wherever they are very easily on the internet, so you can see your spouse's appointments or commitments and make sure that you're not planning something for your spouse when they already have something planned for y'all together. It's great for keeping up with kids' schedules or roommate schedules so that you're not crossing in the night and have no idea what's going on in your shared environment. Beyond that, incorporating in baby steps is important for those that are not as tech savvy. So starting with 1 or 2 apps if you're new to the smartphone world, or if you're using a flip phone, start with websites. And again, Google's a great platform for just using the things that are on the Google website and not worrying about a smartphone or a tablet or anything along those lines.
All right, outstanding. Well, Lance wrote exactly, so hopefully we've answered his question. If not, he can pop something up. Now, I just want to give you a quick chance. Is there anything you've like, oh my gosh, I wanted to mention this and forgot? I want to give you an opportunity if there is.
Well, I do want to make everyone aware that not only do I offer the face-to-face and video-based consulting, I do offer the hands-on office organizing as well as public speaking and organizing services for enhancing your productivity. So no matter where you are located, if you are interested in learning more about any of these tools, I can meet with you via Google Plus Hangouts or Skype or any other tool to walk you through it. We can do some screen sharing so that you can see how I'm using the tool to see how it can better be utilized in your life, or maybe can be incorporated into your workflow. I also offer very relatively inexpensive price workshops that are open to the public. My workshop schedule is continually evolving and being added to, so feel free to visit my website, which is organizeforsuccess.biz, and under upcoming events I keep the list of upcoming workshops, so take a moment to visit.
We've got another question for you, so I want to make sure that it's from Lance. So, as an example, instead of having a paper calendar on the fridge, transferring it to an electronic calendar and connect all people in the house to it.
Absolutely. I would, and the benefit to having it online is you're not chained to that fridge where it's hanging. You can access it remotely wherever you're located, and if Lance makes a change to his calendar while he's sitting at work, then whoever he is sharing that calendar with an hour away or 30 minutes away or whatever immediately knows what that change is. So it's not like you're waiting until you get back to the fridge to add that next meeting or appointment or doctor's appointment or whatever. It's immediately added to it.
So if you're in a roommate situation, you say, my girlfriend's coming over tonight, no awkward moments are going to happen.
Absolutely. It takes away, it used to be that you put like a towel over the doorknob or something like that. We're in the technological age, we don't have to do that anymore.
Hey, I'm just trying to stop awkward moments around the world. In addition to clearing clutter from the inside and out, I'm all about stopping awkward moments. So, just to recap, organizedforsuccess.biz. If they go to your website, you have a list of all your great classes that are coming up. You do speaking, you do presentations, you can consult via Skype, via Google, everything.
Yes.
All right, outstanding. So, is there anything else that you want to add before we wrap up?
Well, I think the message for people to go away with is that even though technology is supposed to make life easier for us, it can indeed become clutter if we let it become clutter. So being strategic about what types of technology we bring into our realm and continually evaluating what we keep in our realm and our processes for dealing with it can truly make technology a tool that makes us better, more productive, smarter, more efficient, and live a better life. So I want to make sure people are empowered to use technology as a tool.
All right, everyone, I want you to get out, clear your clutter, and live your life. Thank you so much, Emily.
Thanks, Julie.
All right, everyone. Bye now.
Thanks for joining us on Clearing the Clutter Inside and Out. You can find out more about Julie Coraccio and her services at reawakenyourbrilliance.com. We'll see you here next Tuesday at 1 p.m. Remember, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step.